It is Thursday, October 23rd, and you're dialed in with Irish Illustrated Insider. Today's crew: John Bryce of Football Scoop, Tim Priester, and me, Tim O'Malley of Irish Illustrated. News yesterday, Priester, that Notre Dame received a pledge. Legacy recruit James Halter, son of Jordan Halter from the 89-93 range. Four-star Pittsburgh Central Catholic Pennsylvania star. And I know you did a film review on him yesterday, which I read. And I have one question for you after all of that. Is he one of those guys that Mike McGlinchey talks about, where you're all tackles until you get there?
I like him at tackle. I mean, I think anybody's a candidate for guard now with Joe Rudolph. He is willing to put anybody anywhere to get him on the field. I'm not sure what I expected from James Halter. Of course, I remember Jordan Halter. He never really became real prominent for them.
Pretty good line in 89-93 at Notre Dame.
He was on some really, really good teams. But what I found interesting was there's video out there of Jordan teaching the Joe Moore line camp. So I mean, his techniques are Joe Moore's techniques, and Joe Moore's techniques are James Halter's techniques, and he's really, really fundamentally sound. I especially like him in the ground game. He was a tight end recently till they moved to tackle, and so he's just starting to add weight. But he's really fundamentally sound, pretty mechanical in pass protection. And I think that, well, you can say mechanical or stiff. That can be a bad thing. I think it's a pretty good thing because he's just very fundamentally sound. I think we need to see James Halter against some really speed rushers to know whether he can handle that. But that's the case of any tackle. Could he end up at guard? I imagine he could, but I think he looks pretty well situated at right tackle now.
Yeah, I didn't see him to the depth that you did, TP, but I like his fundamentals and his technique. Like, you can just tell he understands the position. He plays it with a good knowledge of the position.
He sees the field. Yeah.
Correct. He's not just out there like, oh, I got a nice frame and I'm athletic. Like, he understands how to play the position at a pretty strong level for a guy that young.
Stays on his feet. My favorite thing about a lineman.
That's your favorite thing about a lineman, and that was what Joe Otting did against USC that he did not do against NC State. So that's staying on your feet is a extreme undervalued trait that people don't think about too often. Even when you finish a block, if you're always finishing falling down, it's not really what they're teaching you to do, of course. But
agreed.
Yes, and the way they recruit linemen, we'll be talking about other linemen before we talk about James Halter breaking in the lineup, because we still haven't. Guys like Will Black still haven't played yet, and there's plenty of that going on. But there's a tackle for you, Will Black. I know everybody wants him to start. Remember, everybody wanted to start at guard there, at the right guard. What's wrong? Or left tackle too, but Will Black probably a future tackle. And we did have a quick question on Will Black. I don't think people realize that because we got a lot of bye week questions on personnel. Of course, he had a concussion and he was out, and then he was questionable, which probably means there was 3 weeks of concussion, because you got to get a concussion, then get listed for having a concussion, and then you were questionable after that. So guys like that, of course, that can slow you down a little bit. But pretty sure you spent a few minutes with Micah Shrewsbury and the Irish basketball team, and I got a question on here, and I thought you'd enjoy putting it in the segment, because remember Alan Wazalewski used to always tell us you can talk about basketball, it's okay, when he was the basketball media relations guy. Well, ND Fan 08 asks, can I ask a basketball question since it's a bye week, as if it's never allowed at any other time? If the answer is yes, are we going to be any good at men's basketball this season?
The projections, they had a panel of people that picked the league, and they had Notre Dame 10th out of 18. I think they'll be more interesting. I addressed this in Thursday Thoughts, and I'll have a series of stories here through the weekend. I interviewed Jalen Harrelson, who's a great interview and has been really, really impressive. Sir Mohammed, Marcus Burton, Carson Tout, I think is a tone setter and a leader of the program. He definitely has set a tone, physically. I spoke with Braden Shrewsbury as well. How media days are. Everybody's optimistic. Micah Shrewsbury he says his team fits him. He says they're tougher. They need to win the 6-point games or less. They were 6-7 last year, and in 6 of those losses, they were leading by double digits at some point during that game. So, I think they're more interesting because if you have a healthy Sir Mohammed on the basketball court with guys like Jalen Harrelson, Marcus Burton, and Carson Tout, Cole Serta should be a little bit stronger. He's a prolific shooter. If that's somebody that you can count on, shooting the basketball. Shrewsbury, I think, needs to diversify his game. I joke about this, and it's pretty mean spirited, but any program that runs Kebajai out there 25 minutes a game kind of takes a little bit away from your optimism of what's going to happen up front. They're bigger, but I'm not sure that they're necessarily going to be a better rebounding team. Garrett Sundra is going to play. I mean, he's going to be in the top
Well,
7 or 8
Tout would make
rotation.
them a better rebound. Tout would make them a better rebounding team. He was the best rebounder in the nation for
He
that
was,
range.
he
That's
was, and
compared to not that guy. It's
I
what you're
mean,
comparing him to.
I think everybody's going to find this guy to be a real special addition to this program, personality wise, mindset wise. I hope it shows up because going from Northern Arizona to the ACC, it could be a little bit of a culture shock. But he doesn't seem like the kind of guy that's going to be overwhelmed by anything. I just love the way he came in, and his toughness is part of the fabric of what I think this team can be. I hope it rubs off on the other guys.
Harrelson, as you alluded to, he's a 6'7" guy who can play multiple positions for you. How quick is his transition? To me, that's one of three huge keys for whether or not Notre Dame strides forward this year. And I think it's imperative that we see real tangible progress from Notre Dame men's basketball this year. But Jalen Harrelson and how quickly he acclimates to college ball is right up there. Marcus Burton staying healthy is right up there for me. And what is the year 1 to year 2 leap for Sir Muhammad, who also must stay healthy?
Absolutely. I totally agree there, JB. He's a key man. And that's why, when you have Harrelson, Muhammad, and Burton on the court at the same time, especially, Harrelson and Muhammad, because they're longer than Burton.
Right.
Now you're looking at a group out there that can really distribute the basketball. Harrelson's going to help them in a multitude of ways, defending certain guys, getting Burton off the ball a little bit. But with those three guys, you can really handle it. And then again, like I said, Cole Serter's got to shoot it, and Shrewsbury's got to play better defense. We even talked about that yesterday. I think it's a more interesting team, whether it's a team that rises to the upper half of the ACC. Let's just wait and see. It was a typical media day.
Yeah.
But I think this can be what I call an equity year for Notre Dame men's basketball because the ACC is so relatively wide open beyond anyone named Duke.
I agree.
Because North Carolina is ready to fire Hubert Davis, and there's so much pressure. There's real pressure there. I think it's a tremendous disappointment, if not an outright failure, if this team doesn't go into the back half of February challenging for postseason play. Does that mean they're a bubble team with that probably ends up in the NIT? Probably, but I think they have to be relevant in conversation about playing beyond the ACC tournament because it is year 3.
Well, the equity was just lost last year. That's the problem. Going into year 3, they lost. I was shocked that they did not get better. But Tim Priesher, you said it was a typical media day, but he didn't have a red flag by saying we really haven't worked on our defense yet, did he? Because that was not a typical media day last year. That was a strange moment, and it came out on the court. But I was going to make a joke when you said you hope Tout's isn't going to get culture shock from going to the ACC. I thought you meant by playing down from his Northern Arizona days because that.
Well, there are some gaps in the ACC as we've been talking about for many years. Yes. Mike Birch, if you're out there listening.
We actually had some leftover questions about the USC game, so I pigeonholed them into segment 1, guys, and then we will not have USC in segment 2. Segment 2's got a nice variety in there. This we talked about a little bit off the air last time, but same question basically from Donnelly 3434 and Flanner Jimrat. I like Flanner Jimrat's wording. I'm still picking my jaw off the floor from NBC noting that USC was choosing to sit back in 2 high safeties in the rain due to fear of our throw game. Nodded to JB right there. How long has it been since the opponent chose this poison? But also, is it really true Danton Lynn put 2 high and 6 in the box because he respected Notre Dame's deep ball and throw game more than Love and Price? Is this real life?
I don't think it's that. I think Danton Lynn tries not to be too static, so he likes to do some different things. They were very, very concerned. I can tell you from speaking with multiple people that USC went into this game with a much healthier respect for the Notre Dame offense. Weather be damned. I know for a fact they just said like this offense is way better than the offense that did what it did to us a year ago in California. This offense has a quarterback. These are their words, not mine. This offense has a quarterback that no longer holds back Notre Dame's offense.
Yeah. I mean, I thought I like projecting going into the game. I thought it was going to be a big passing day for CJ Carr, and because there's so many holes defensively. Now, why they remained with the two deep with the ground game? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what he was thinking in that instance, but
I mean,
I concur with you what you're saying, John, about USC's respect because for Notre Dame's passing game because they were vulnerable. Maybe on a clear day, no rain and what have you, Notre Dame ends up throwing the ball better, but it wasn't a good day for CJ Carr. So
I think a lot of it had to do with they wanted a last line of defense against those two guys running the football. I think like especially the way the game unfolded, and they try to keep it really simple for the USC defenders, and they try to do multiple things out of very simple looks. But I think that a lot of that continuing to play those guys deep was almost a prevent defense against Notre Dame's long running game.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was a huge mistake on the 65-yard Jeremiah Love touchdown run. They just didn't have a gap filled. I guess other than that, when you do have two back, when you do play 2D, people always ask why Charlie Weiss's running backs never broke off long runs, why Armando Allen always stopped at 25 yards when he clearly still had some speed. It's because everybody played too deep against Notre Dame because they actually didn't respect the run. But when you have levels to your defense like that, it works. You know what? It didn't work though. That's Jeremiah Love and Jordan Price had a hell of a day.
Like I think Lincoln Riley kind of came out of the game indicating that it wasn't so much Notre Dame's physicality as much as it was, missing your run fits. I'm sure that was the case where they missed some run fits.
Yeah.
But in what world can you convince any human being with any knowledge of football that Notre Dame didn't beat the crap out of them in the trenches?
Related note. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, JB.
No, I was just agreeing with TP.
Bryant Young asked a question, not the Bryant Young, but Bryant Young 97, who I don't believe is on our board. Did you guys hear, and I think you guys have probably seen this by now, but Petros Papadakis, right? Petros
Papadakis.
I think it's Papadakis. Papadakis, it says here on the internet. Anyway, Petros, I agree with him, going scorched earth, ripping into Lincoln Riley and the USC administration trying to end the rivalry with Notre Dame. I'd love to hear your opinions on what Petros said. And I brought this up because last year I said something on this podcast and reiterated multiple times. How does Lincoln Riley have anything to do with the future of USC's programs decisions? Every coach, other than Nick Saban, is about to be an ex-coach at the programs. Coaches don't make these decisions other than Nick Saban. Dabo Sweeney started making some decisions for himself and the program. How'd that go?
Yeah,
your coach can't make these decisions.
Absolutely right. And Papadakis was absolutely right. He's great, and his in the way only he can.
He delivers it properly.
He can say it. They're soft. They're soft.
His delivery was pretty on point, man.
No, he was great, and it's essentially everything that we said after the game and since the game. What does it say about Michigan? That USC physically dominated Michigan, and then Notre Dame physically dominates USC. Where is Michigan's level of physicality? Get them back on the schedule as soon as possible.
Play them on the West Coast, too. Have them fly out there. Both teams will fly out there and play. Notre Dame, we'd like to play you in Pepperdine right outside.
We want to play you, Michigan, but don't get rid of Sharon Moore yet.
Yeah, don't get rid of Sharon Moore yet.
It was kind of like, Clay Helton. Yeah, extend him.
I've seen the stuff with Petros. I'm of the mindset that this has been a bit of an elaborate poker play by USC all along, that they floated canceling the series to get Notre Dame to come to the table and start discussing playing the game much earlier in the year, which is where things are right now. There's, again, great optimism about it. Quote, because Notre Dame's being really flexible with their schedule. Again, those are not my words. So I think that a lot of it has to do with that, but good for Petros. And I also understand USC trying to be smart about travel or a scheduling of travel because they've already been to Purdue, Illinois, and now South Bend all in like a 5-week span. So I get it. I get like trying to mitigate how much you make those cross country trips. I don't think that should be an excuse for how you play Lincoln Riley, James Franklin.
And when you're in California and you choose to join the Big Ten, what do you think it's going to be?
Yeah. Well, do we think Lincoln, when we talk about coaches having say on schedule, I doubt Lincoln Riley had any say on joining the Big Ten.
Nor should he. Yeah. He should have no say in any of these things. Every coach is about to be a coach for somebody else. That is just how it works. I mean, you cannot base USC's program decisions on Lincoln Riley's whims.
Yeah. And I would be, yeah, we'll leave it there for now. More later.
I like this final question before we go to segment 2 from Terry Benedict, who asked very good questions. In the transfer portal era, how do rivalries work with players? Are they bought in the same? Do they have to be educated on it? Do you think they care much about it?
I think Notre Dame, they try to educate them on it.
They do.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you have to. It's especially when it's somebody like USC. It's really important that you indoctrinate them into that line of thinking. But they have. I mean, there's so much team building stuff that goes on in today's game that all of those things are addressed. And I would imagine that Marcus Freeman, among as much as anybody, probably does the best job of preparing new players to rivalry games.
And I think that when it's a rivalry game that has a tangible trophy, that helps. The guys know they see the trophy. They see the trophy on recruiting visit weekends. They see the photos hanging through the football offices or the team room or the hallways in the Goog that show a Christian Gray or a Leonard Moore running a pick six back 100 yards against USC. They understand those video highlights play. So I do think it requires education, intentional education on Notre Dame's part. It's not like SEC where so many rivalries, kids are still coming from those footprints. There's still, even in this era of free agency, Alabama's only going into a certain radius overall to fill its roster, and those kids grow up knowing about the Iron Bowl or the world's largest cocktail party or Third Saturday in October or Georgia
Right.
Tech, good old fashioned hate like that. Those are so regional that it's impossible not to know about them. But Notre Dame's national for a reason.
Ooh, that Georgia Tech game's going to be
Hey,
gonna be a doozy.
did I mention that Georgia Tech forfeited the home game to collect a $10 million check to play that game in Mercedes Stadium? So good luck dealing with 60,000 Georgia fans for your home game for the best team you've had since 1990.
That
Enjoy.
hurts in retrospect. With the rivalries, there's the USC, I think, is probably a lot easier for Notre Dame to, as you guys were mentioning. You'd really be hard pressed to have even Marcus Freeman sell that there's one-way rivalry here where you guys better be careful with Purdue, which was a huge rival, Boston College, which was a 15-year rival, Stanford, even though you lost to them 3 years ago. I think you can sell USC. I think next year it'll be hard to sell Michigan State as a rivalry where these guys care more about this game than you do. That's the danger zone in these rivalries. Notre Dame's rivals stink right now in Purdue, Boston College, Michigan State. Now, I think you could sell Michigan because everybody knows Michigan just won the national title. It's not hard to sell the Michigan rivalry on these guys. I think they did a good job with USC. You could kind of tell just talking to 4 or 5 players how they felt about it. That probably comes from Freeman. I will say Brian Kelly did try this pre-portal era. Like, do you remember talking to Manti Te'o? They did book reports on Notre Dame's best players.
Yeah.
He gave Stonebreaker to Manti Te'o. Like, I want you to know about the history of Notre Dame football. I don't know if that ever took as much necessarily, because I guess if it's just an assignment and then you never follow through with it, it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, I thought they fully embraced the USC. So,
oh yeah, absolutely. You definitely got that feeling.
Yeah.
During the week and then after the game.
I'd like to see them try to sell the Boston College rivalry when they suit up for their first
I
thing on Monday.
wrote today that Notre Dame cannot lose to BC, Syracuse, or Stanford. And I was reminded of, well, Marshall, Northern Illinois, those have nothing to do with the current state of Notre Dame football.
No, because they could have lost to Syracuse on week 2 out at Syracuse on a Friday night.
What do you,
With Angeli at
Yeah,
quarterback, yeah, that
sure,
could have happened, sure.
how dare you diminish this Boston College Notre Dame rivalry?
I
It's the Apparel Bowl, New Balance versus Under Armour.
I'm not
It's
I'm not
actually made in America Apparel Bowl.
Oh, well, that's impressive. I'm not diminishing the rivalry. I'm diminishing Boston College 2025.
I know. I just before we go to break, I'm gonna throw a flex up here because I made Jack Freeman laugh in the background. And
I
he
am
me on Twitter.
I am diminishing the rivalry because I feel like it, and Boston College deserves to be diminished in this rivalry, and they haven't beaten Notre Dame since 2008. So there you go, everybody. We'll be back with segment 2, burning up the boards. Segment 2 is brought to you by the RV Manufactured Housing Hall of Fame in Elkhart, Indiana. In addition to the museum and its various exhibition halls, the campus is open to the public for free camping and is less than an hour from Notre Dame's campus. No reservation required. Whether you're looking to learn more about the history of recreational vehicles in the Kindlin Library or simply a cost-effective, interesting place to stay on your family road trip, the RV Manufactured Housing Hall of Fame can provide exactly what you're looking for. Our first question was asked by a few people. We're going to spotlight Not J Tefel 1 and I Told Althea Wonder. With half the season in the books, what aspects does Notre Dame need to improve upon to make another championship run, not just the playoff? And please don't use only third and short situations.
Anything in the red zone. I mean, I guess that's kind of part of all of this, but it's it's an issue. There was a thread on the Irish Illustrated message board, and we were kicking around. Somebody said wishbone, and I mean, you don't want to like upset the apple cart and have to do something completely different. You'd like to be able to solve your red zone problems with your base offense. And then somebody said Minchie, and I'm like, I'm not saying they should do that. They should probably solve it conventionally, but you could do a lot worse than trying Kenny Minchie in the red zone. I know they don't want to take CJ Carr off the field. I get that.
If
there are worse things to suggest than something with Minchie, I guess.
It's definitely not a bad suggestion, but what if he's not a tough inside runner? Just being fast and mobile is not a third and one runner. Maybe he's not a tough inside. It's not easy to do to be a guy that wants to go get smashed on third and one.
I'd say, I mean, maybe you're right. I think Kenny Minchie's pretty tough. I think he's got a nice frame. I think he would be willing to do that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just more. I'm not saying he's not. I'm saying like CJ Carr's tough minded. He can run a little bit. I just don't know if everybody's. I would go Tyler Buckner over Kenny Minchie for my Wildcat runner because I've seen him do it in college football with some
fair enough. I mean,
serious acumen.
Well, when you to more broadly answer the question, you got to keep developing depth on your defensive line, which I think they're doing a nice job. Hughes is playing really much improved and much more viable, but you still need a couple more bodies there that you can rotate in for 8 to 10 to 12 snaps a game, I think, especially being mindful of a playoff run. You want to figure out a way over the last 5 games of your season to lighten the workload for some of those guys that have played your most snaps on the defensive interior, if you possibly can. I very strongly believe in that. And you've got to get healthier along your offensive line and your offensive and defensive lines. But, we continue to hear that Schrouth, and I don't think it was a ligament injury based on everyone I've talked to. Sometimes I guess a kneecap can dislocate, for example.
Ugh.
And that also can at times require surgery, but it doesn't seem like if that's what happened here, surgery will be required. So, and then T.O., I think you have some insight into the offensive line as well.
Yeah, I think it's I think Schrouth is the main guy coming back. It's highly doubtful. Jagisel will be back for the 2025 season and playoff run. Maybe if you get back into that same last game of the year, that increases his chances a little bit, right? I mean, there's a much better chance to play January 20 than there is December 20. And just last year, Charles Jagisel was ready to practice on December 1st. And I don't think that's Doesn't seem to be the case this year. So you're looking at your 6-man crew of what the 5 they have in now plus Trouth. And I think that's good. I think it's a good. We can't. I can't judge Joe Oddie on one game, but if we judge Joe Oddie on one game, he's all set. Obviously, it's a bit of a drop off having Ashley Craig to Odding because there'll be some regression to the mean for Joe Odding because he's. I don't know if he'd ever looked that good at the college level. I mean, but who cares? Kudos to him. It's like when you say, "Well, Greathouse is only 2 games or Penn State and Ohio State." Oh, really? Okay. Well, some guys only 2 games are Central Michigan and Tennessee State. So let's go with Greathouse.
I'm not sure. There have been too many instances where Notre Dame has been. I don't want to. I mean, they were. I think that everybody was really surprised that Otting played as well as he did, and from the very beginning of the game, he played really, really well. I don't think that they knew exactly what they would get, and I think that there was great joy in the productivity that he offered their offensive line against USC.
He also played loudly well because, as you point out, it was a 65-yard run and a touchdown where he threw great blocks. I know JB pointed out Schroff threw the best block, of course, on the touchdown run, but Otting did his job too. And you're like, wow, okay, well, he's 2 for 2. He's fine now. Let's go.
I will note, great insight from UTO on Jagasol. I was told midweek this week he's finally to a point where he's able to resume working out in the weight room. So that's
good. That's good for the future.
Yeah, that's a significant personal step forward. Is he's out of those encumbrances and has resumed working out in the weight room, not working out on the practice field with the team, but is working out in the weight room.
Yeah, it was interesting. We were trying to look at his arm like we always do, and he did not have the brace on. But I didn't want to report that on our message board when we didn't see the brace from up top of the press box because they're all also wearing real long sleeves, all the linemen, because they weren't playing. So obviously you're outside in a cold, rainy day. You're not going to be sitting out there with your bare arm exposed. But it did not appear like the RoboCop brace was on, at least, which is pretty important.
What other area, to get back to the question, what other areas do you need to see them improve? Certainly what the D tackles did Saturday was a massive step forward.
Field goal kicking.
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge because they're going to have close games after the regular season here.
Well, Marcus Freeman rarely does, but...
No, after the regular season, they're going to have close games.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
This is the playoff run, not qualify for the playoff.
Yeah,
this is the national championship run. I would say continue the path they're on with the pass rush the last 2 weeks and now no steps back because those offenses can handle you if you don't have a good pass rush. The ones in December and January. From Kay Beasley with the bye week, what candidates are there to play just 4 games and still preserve a redshirt season?
Well, the 2 Flanagans, Cooper and James, I think have each played 1 game. And Tim, I thought you did a really good job in recent podcast explaining how they should handle Flanagan. I mean, don't play him against Boston College.
No. Or just find a way to play him 3 more games, whatever you do.
Navy and Pittsburgh, definitely. I think I don't think there's any doubt. Those are the 2 most competitive games left. Those are 2 that he should play, and you got a 3rd one.
Well, your 4th should then be Stanford if needed, because you might need him. Like, you have to not play him against Syracuse for number 4, because then if you fly out to Stanford and Eli Rarity gets hurt and James Flanagan gets hurt during the game, you're just going to sit Cooper Flanagan, even though you need him. So you play him Navy and Pitt, like you pointed out, and you save game 4 for Stanford. It's they've done that before with players where you're like, all right, you have to be available for this game. Yeah. I know we talked redshirt, but you Marcus isn't going to just decide that they're not going to have an extra tight end if guys get hurt. He's going to play the guy if it's his 5th game.
Right.
And didn't they do that all the way? It predates Marcus, but didn't they do that with Isaiah Foskey, save his final game and then play him at Stanford?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
He blocked a punt.
Blocked a punt in
that game.
I said that.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry.
I'm just joking with you.
Other options. So the unconventional options, those are the fun options, Flanagan. Unconventional, Carson Hobbs has played 4 games. He did not redshirt as a freshman. That would be a good idea. If Devonta Smith comes back, you can do it because he doesn't play special teams, Hobbs. If Devonta Smith doesn't come back, I'm not sure you can do it as easily because you got some blowouts coming, Tim, so you would have to go a different nickel. I guess it'd be Minnick. Jaden Greathouse has played 4 games, but that would be tough to do now. I don't know if Greathouse would want to red shirt. Is he gonna play 2 more years of college ball some here at Notre Dame or anywhere? Like that's a. I
I
guess you could. I
would.
guess you want to keep the option in your back pocket, right?
Yeah, because look, in this era of college football, I would play my 4 games and then come back for a playoff run,
Yeah.
because he's going to make more money as
Right.
a
Right.
number 1 or number 2
Right.
receiver in college than a
So
number 4 or number 5 wide receiver on a rookie deal in the NFL.
so
So
Greathouse's thigh extends for another 5 weeks. He is an option to just play in the playoff run, and then he would be a reserve in the playoff run, I think, in terms of Mike Brown's mindset and Mike Denbrock's mindset. Hopefully, the Carson Hobbs Jade Greathouse thing is not a 4 game redshirt, though, as much as the Flanagans should be. And then for people probably wondering, obviously, Golden's burned it, Zachary's burned it. Is there anyone else of relevance from freshman class? Nolan James has not.
How many game?
Nolan James is on. Sorry, I had that pulled up. He's played 2. So Nolan James is.
Okay, Elijah Burris has played 2. I don't
Yeah,
know that that's a
he won't.
factor.
He
But
won't burn
yeah.
his. That would be crazy. Yeah.
All right.
Everybody else is Madden Faramos obviously burned his. Yeah, those are the high. Those are the main guys. I point out Matty Augustine played 2 games. He wouldn't play over 4 anyway, but he was in street clothes for the USC game. So that's of mild relevance when you're working him in. And of course, Will Black is now free to play, right? He was a probable or questionable for
Oh, you mean health wise?
health wise. Yeah, he
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
not played. He's not played. So if he could work his way in, that would be 4 games of reserve duty you could do with
Yeah.
Matty Augustine out also.
Man, make him a blocking tight end.
I noticed the tone of your voice there, Tim Priest.
Well, I mean, how can that? That's a better option than we got to throw Jack Larson out there to block. That's not a good option. Put a different number on him and have him block in the red zone.
Put 45
I
on
mean,
him.
just throw it against the wall and see if it sticks when it comes to red zone and short yardage.
Everything we can come up with. Huh?
Yeah, I got a million of them.
Yeah, that's good. I got Tyler Buckner. I already solved it. JB's got Minchie. I got Buckner, and you have Will Black gets a tight end number. That's good. We've covered it all. I'll say, and the wishbone. They can all run the wishbone.
fantasy football.
This question for JB: Flying Penguin. It could be an easy answer or a tough one. Is there any language in these coaches' contracts that would prevent them from leaving mid-year? What's stopping Penn State from hiring someone currently coaching at another program? And I'm assuming he's saying an offensive coordinator too, as opposed to a head coach. And having them lead the team out of the tunnel next week. For players, there's eligibility enrollment issues for now that preclude them from transferring and playing. Is there a restriction on coaching staff members? And I guarantee he doesn't only mean head coaches.
The short answer is no. I mean, the language is the language. You could pay a buyout. Let's not forget, since we've already maybe referenced Bobby Petrino, if not today in this podcast, it might have been the Football Scoop podcast, but we've referenced Bobby Petrino on this podcast. Let's not forget that he left little love letters in the chairs of the Atlanta Falcons to tell them he was leaving under the cloak of darkness, like his name was Art Modell, and he absconded from the NFL back into the college world. James Franklin could be hired right now and would make a lot of sense for somebody to hire him right now. Jimbo Fisher is doing the tour, trying to get involved at Virginia Tech, trying to get very involved at Oklahoma State, trying to get involved in Arkansas. And he has no offset, by the way, so he can go coach somewhere and still collect every single penny of the 76 million that Texas A&M continues to pay him. So I think that's just a side note of interest. There's not the language. There's not but there's the unspoken language. And I don't think there's another athletics director that would do that to another athletics director, particularly if you're talking about intra-conference dealings. Like Lane Kiffin unquestionably is Florida's #1 target. But Scott Strickland is not going to go try and take Lane Kiffin from Keith Carter in the middle of the season. And I would question if a coach was willing to leave his team in the middle of the season for what you say football is about or college athletics is about and what you want to build, is that the person you would really want leading your program? There's tons of language in there. There's tons of buyout language in there. There's nothing that says they can't leave right now. I'll ask some agents. I'm actually Flying Penguin. I'm going to take your question and I'm going to send it to about, I don't know, 3 to 5 different agents ranging from LA to New York and a couple of spots in between, guys that I talk to every single week. And I'm just going to ask them to answer the question. And you can either resubmit this question or hit me up on Twitter, or my email is john at football scoop, and I will provide you a more in-depth answer. But I'm going to actually do that right now so that my stupid self doesn't forget.
Everybody got that, John at Football Scoop. If you have any questions about football, John will be answering them all weekend on the bye
I
weekend.
mean, it's in my Twitter bio, so it's not like it's a hidden email.
People don't read well, though.
All right, we have a question from Jay Harper 3. For the most part, Notre Dame has landed solid, if not overwhelmingly talented transfers. A lot of that guy overperformed gave a solid year type player, with, of course, some notable exceptions. With the ceiling for next year so high, do we see them making a couple splash signings? And he references, Jay Harper 3 references KC Concepcion and Carson Black. And he said, if not, why? Can we not recruit guys with that level of talent, not willing to spend, etc.?
Well, they're definitely willing to spend because they were one of the first programs out there to go spend outside of their fund by getting Sam Hartman. And he was the guy everybody wanted, Sam Hartman. Riley Leonard was one of 3 everybody wanted, and it worked out for both Will Howard and Riley Leonard where they went. Better fits for Ohio State and for Notre Dame. They spent a lot of money on Riley Leonard too. So this year, they didn't spend a lot of money on a player because they had their quarterback, and they had to spend a lot of money on the guys to retain from the national championship run. So I mean, I know people think it's just totally endless and like they're not to spend the money, but in addition to culture and all those things, which is we're going to talk about here in the next minute, and the right fit, how much money do you looking to spend if you're putting $3.5 million into an offensive line, if you're putting $4 million into 5 defensive backs? I mean, you think Greathouse was free after the run he had for Penn State and Ohio State? That's not Jeremiah Love. It's the money was spent on retention.
Yeah. And Notre Dame made it clear even before it uncorked the run, when it was on the precipice of the run going into the playoffs, it made it clear its strategy was they believed in the players that they brought into the program. They would turn around and stick their money back into the program. And I do think it's worth noting Jaden Greathouse is making a hell of a lot of money. He did leave some money on the table. He's heavy 6 figures. I believe he was offered 7 figures, and he had already turned that down once. And, Malachi Fields and Will Pauling didn't.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't get them at Gordon Food Service, okay?
They had 200. They brought with them 258 receptions.
Now, I'll say this. I talked to a guy with deep NFL experience. Today's Thursday, so yesterday. And I was asking him specifically about those two. And he said Fields and Pauling have done as much or more for their draft stock as just about anybody around that changed venues via the portal. Malachi Fields has maybe crawled up to a number 2 second round pick, second day pick, whereas he entered this season as a 4th to 5th round guy. And now Will Pauling has climbed up to maybe being a number 4 or number 5 wide receiver prospect in the NFL. So I think that's interesting, which means, by the way, Notre Dame, what have we talked about? It's great to say you want to go sign these receivers. You have to show them you're willing to throw the ball.
Yeah.
Well, now you've got all sorts of tangible evidence to say, come play with us. We can pay you. We're Notre Dame. Oh, and we actually throw the ball now. And we'll probably throw it more next year because we're not going to have these 2 cats that are the best backfield in all of college football.
Also, I know he beat Notre Dame, but was anybody listening thinking they should have signed Carson Beck for $4 million instead of just have CJ Carr?
I wasn't.
CJ Carr would have been gone the second Carson Beck signed.
Yeah.
Well, you then would have gone to a 7th year with a 7th different starting quarterback. So
I've never heard that before. There's
well, I guess this is where we insert the culture conversation, Tim.
Yes, I knew we were going to leave it for you. So
you knew I would. You knew I would say culture before the podcast was over. But it is Notre Dame, and it's absolutely essential. It's not just a talent grab, and it's not because they're not willing to spend money. But like you say, Tim, I mean, where you just spend $4 million at every position, like. you have to be a little bit smart about it. But I mean, Malachi Fields was every bit the splash signing that Casey Concepcion was.
Right.
Concepcion's a little bit more spectacular in nature, but in terms of productivity,
Well,
I mean,
Fields can
Malachi
block
Fields
too.
is
You're blocking for Jeremiah
yeah,
Love, right, Tim? I
yeah,
mean, that's
yeah. So, Pauling was maybe less ballyhooed, but again, he came in with the same number of receptions that the Fields did from Virginia. So, I don't know. There's a balance. I don't, if you're a Notre Dame fan, if you think that they're going to continually go out and get splash transfer hirings, it's just not the way they choose to construct their team. And I think I think they've done a pretty good job overall with the transfers they've brought in.
that playoff run necessitated so much money going back into the roster.
Yeah.
Just as think what JB just said about Greathouse. That wasn't even step one for Notre Dame, Jaden Greathouse. You had to secure Leonard Moore, Jadarian Price, Christian Gray, Adon Schuler, all the offensive linemen, all of them, before you have to worry about your wide receiver, who also did great in NIL for your team.
I do think, again, because of the examples of Fields and Pauling, Notre Dame will be prepared to go back into the portal and do a significant acquisition at the wide receiver position.
Which is fun. Wide receivers, there's a lot of them out there, so you can do it. It's a little bit
There's
easier.
going to be a lot more when you
Yep.
look at, like, Wisconsin's going to get fired. Michigan State, everyone tells me, is going to get fired, maybe much sooner than later. Michigan looks like a disaster. Like, there's a lot of programs out there.
More portal stuff. Jim Bob Cooter 55. I asked a few times in the pod this summer if you thought Notre Dame needed to bring in more defensive linemen in the portal, and you mentioned ND thought they had enough with Dawson and Hughes. Now with the injury to Rubio, it seems like they're going to be short on numbers and talent. In the era of portal and NIL, why doesn't a team like ND stock up on a position of need? I think we explained they did stock up on positions of need, but he asked this question also. Was there no other quality defensive lineman out there this summer that fit?
Well, I mean, a quality defensive lineman has to be willing to walk into a situation where he may be third team. Like, it's a two-way street there that you have to take in consideration. But I mean, Jim Cooter said that he's been asking this question since the summer. That's why I found the question. Like, did he just submit this? Because
he just we talked about it in the summer.
The interior defensive line just had one of its best performances of the year. I mean, I'm really encouraged with Elijah Hughes. I realize that they're without Rubio, but Heinisch played really well. Dawson did some really, maybe not volume wise, but did some really impressive things. And Onye did have his best game in Notre Dame uniform with the opponent in mind. So, I mean, I get it, but like, how many guys are willing to come in that are good, that are third team?
Yeah, I like JBC. He asks a lot of good questions. He has a great username. But again, this is just like, it's not really reality because these guys aren't solely coming for the paycheck or solely coming for the gold helmet. They're also coming to play, and they can't get their next paycheck if they come to Notre Dame and get a paycheck that gives them 8 to 10 snaps a game. Nobody's going for that, especially when another ACC team signed an FCS lineman this year for $750,000.
Amazing.
$750, and that's not hearsay. I know the agent incredibly well that brokered the deal. So yeah, it sounds good. You want to stockpile. You also have finite roster space. You have finite resources, and you absolutely have finite snaps to go around. So I didn't look at Notre Dame's depth chart or roster and think they neglected the defensive line. I think Tim Priester, for as far back as May, when we sat down in Marcus, made it very clear he believed Notre Dame needed another tight end. And I think as you sit here and look at this season and assess things 5-2, 7 games in, Notre Dame could use another tight end more than it could use another defensive lineman, in my opinion.
Statman72 asked the same question only with the offensive line guys. It's not on here because it would have been repetitive, but he asked, Coogan, Spindler, and Pendleton, could you have retained 2 of them with more money, if not more snaps? I mean, more money you'd be at a $4.5 million offensive line.
And those guys, they're starting elsewhere.
Yeah, they're starting elsewhere. He's saying, could you pay them as much money to stay? And I think no. because they want to play football too.
And it's, I mean, getting back to the interior defensive line, it's about, player development too. I mean, Sevillano needs to develop.
Yeah.
Mullins needs to
Yeah.
develop.
Well, and that's a great point, Tim. And also, they'll leave if you brought in another, and which I always say, fine, if you bring in the best defensive tackle in the country, I don't care who leaves off the back of the
Right.
roster.
No,
But if you're
right.
bringing in Elijah Hughes light, like not as good as Hughes, to be your third defensive lineman, at some point, Sevillano or Mullins or someone's like, all right, well, what the hell? How am I going to play? That does come up. I mean,
There's never, I don't care if your Alabama team's churning out national titles. There's never been a team that has the exact depth that it wants at every position. It
well,
just,
that's a good point. Yeah.
and it's harder now. So I mean, I understand the question. They need to be better there, but they just were really better there 5 days ago.
And they only really had the one depth issue all offseason was tight end, but that was rough because it was Cooper Flanagan got hurt in January. They would not have had a tight end issue if Cooper Flanagan wasn't hurt. That's kind of one way of
No, and
pointing to it.
I bet that I'd be willing to bet that they wouldn't have as big of a red zone problem if they had a
Right.
healthy Cooper Flanagan as well. We have a question from Frankencow. I can imagine that if it was I on the Notre Dame beat, I would drive myself crazy deciding what statistics to track myself versus leveraging others, or just not bothering with it at all. How do you handle this overload of data and decide what information you need and how to get it?
I like that last part. It made me think of the famous.
I
I was going over some stats at my breakfast table.
Yeah, and it was Wednesday, and I just said hell with it. I'm not going to look up anymore.
I just always think of the breakfast table stats. But no, Priester and I, we talk about this a lot to paint a picture. There's John Bryce, far left, Pete Sampson. To Bryce's right, Tim Priester, me, Drew Mentok, and then going down the row with blue and gold. Priester and Drew, who are on either side of me, just keep different stats during the game than I do. And at some point, I was like, I always lean over, look at you guys. I'm like, what down was that? Because I'm doing other things. Yeah,
Like,
you're
T.O.
that's what I'm
will
here
say,
for.
how long was that touchdown run? And it's like everybody in the stadium knows, but he's doing something different. I'm
Yes.
tracking each play because I'm going to do tail of the tape. And when I rewatch the game, I'm going to have that play by play right by me to know. So I can, okay, this is what happened on that play. Now I watch it, and now
Yes.
now
Yeah.
I have certain keys to look for. But like some of the stats, I mean, I've always thought, I think we're all using FEI more now, which I think is good information for an old timer like me. With new stats introduced, but like I've always felt like, I mean, third down, red zone touchdown percentage. I look more at yards per carry than I do yards per game rushing, because I think that's more important. I
Yeah.
looked at rushing touchdowns allowed, and that's how I knew when Notre Dame had 3 rushing touchdowns against USC last week. They had 3. They had only allowed 3 in the previous 6 games. So, but it's a great question
It is.
because
Yeah.
I feel like each year as I'm starting to prepare a preview of the opponent, like, oh man, I need to look at that too. And so it just goes, there are waves of, I go through each game of the opponent, individual stats on that, team stats. And there's like a wave of things that you go through before, like, I'm ready to fully say on Friday, okay, this is everything. I think these are all the key factors in evaluating this game.
Yeah. For me, I got my start walking sidelines on Friday nights covering high school football. And so I kind of all the way back then started developing some stats and some things that I would like to monitor. That I've evolved and extrapolated through the years. You know that I keep the real time stat. I'm a huge believer in that for what it can mean to a
Mhm.
story, especially if it's a close game. Um, Everyone knows I'm a middle eight stat guy, but I've got some modifications to it though. Like, do you not score in the middle eight, but you keep the other team from getting the ball back, and you get the ball to start the second half, and you don't score in the first 4 minutes, but you take a 7 minute drive and score? That's still like a middle eight win for me, as I call it. bunch of different things like that. I'm constantly looking at personnel and how Notre Dame performs with certain personnel on the field. Do I notice that they're way better against the run with X personnel out there? Do I notice offensively? Last week we talked about it at length on the pregame instant analysis. I knew they were going to do more Eli Raridan and Ty Washington than we had seen all year. And I love the wrinkle that they've added this year of bringing those guys in motion and crashing them into the middle and opening up some running lanes. So I wanted to count how many times they did that last week. I have not yet accomplished that, but those are just some of the ones that I look at.
The one that, of course, Tim and I have talked about for a long time was I thought of about, I don't know, 12 years ago, maybe the second touchdown theory. That the first touchdown means nothing is the second touchdown that doesn't decide the winner, decides the tenor of the game. Obviously doesn't decide a winner. But this is what I tracked during a game. This is why the last touchdown I knew live how far it was probably Jeremiah Love's 98-yarder against IU, because I have no idea what yard line it is when I'm doing these things. That is every competitive coverage play that Notre Dame had in the game. This is every run stuff. That is every pressure in real life. That is every third down. That is every first down snap by the opponent, and that's my drive MVP. And it's the same thing on the other side for the offense, basically. So when I'm doing that, I don't know that it was 3rd and 12 and it was a touchdown. I know that it was 3rd and 12, but I don't know the yard line. That's the way I should say it. But that's why I just say to Priester and Drew, I've alternated so I don't annoy Priester every time. What down was that? not what down. How far was that? I know the down. I don't know how
and so then, like, during a game, like I was asking you about stuffs.
Yeah.
Because that was just pertinent in general. So a lot of times we're just like, okay, what's your stat on that? Here's my stat on this kind of thing. It's fun as hell.
Oh, and chunks by the other team is fun because with Al Golden at the end, there were none. And this one, just right in the middle, is all of USC's. There were just so many, and somehow they offset it. And yeah, you're kind of tracking that. You know how the defense is playing because you can't count quickly with your eyes how many plays in excess of 20 yards they gave up. But in this case, Notre Dame was able to manage it.
Yards. I just thought of another stat that yards per snap defensively, which Al Golden's defenses were very, very good. I think that's a very important. A lot of times it's yards. It's something per play as opposed to like a game,
right?
Because I think yards per play I think is just more, more to the point of what you're trying to track.
And then Pete and I are very much into the rush efficiency in game, so you have some idea how that's going. Pete also, and this is in his review, though, Pete does review of every formation, which we use helpful. And it says, what do you choose to... I mean, we are friends and colleagues with people like Pete, who's on our podcast. I can ask Pete that, and he can ask me about stuff like this. I feel like we could ask anybody in the beat a simple question, as long as it wasn't every week. Hey, by the way, how many stuffs were there? But Pete tracks the formations offensively and defensively, and then the yards that were gained in that play. So in other words, if Price and Love are on the field, how many yards did they gain? And that's easy because they're not on the field together. See, kind of a dig right there. They don't have Price and Love on the field together at the same time. Our next question, Siggy12, and this goes to one of Priester's stats. Chris Ash currently has Notre Dame with a top 25 ranked run defense, something Al Golden never achieved. Will they finish in the top 25? The schedule lines up pretty favorably outside of Navy.
Yeah, if they can keep Navy in relative check, they will, because Pittsburgh is the of Pittsburgh, BC, Syracuse, and Stanford. Pittsburgh has the highest yards per rushing attempt, and it's 3.57, which is bad. Stanford's under 3 yards per carry. Syracuse is not rushing it well. BC is not rushing it well. If they can keep Navy in relative check, yeah, they absolutely can finish in the top 25 against the run.
I'm curious to see Pitt this weekend. Their freshman quarterback that they love so well got pretty dinged up last week, and so I'm curious to see.
Is he questionable? Do you know?
He is questionable.
He's questionable. Okay,
I know he is questionable against the Pack this week, and if he can't go, probably revert back to Eli Holstein, which was a real mess the way that went down. So I'm very intrigued by NC State.
Heintzel's done a good job. He's also sacked 14 times in 3 games with 3 interceptions. Yeah. So he's done some good things, but he's also, played like a freshman too, which I was kind of glad to see.
You know what I'm most impressed with Chris Ash's run defense, and the numbers are good too, but he doesn't give up chunk gains. It was Taylon Green had the 54-yard run. There aren't other gains that hurt Notre Dame this season. We're 7 games through. There's not been a run by a running back where you're like, oh God. It was Taylon Green's run.
Taylon Green's run. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's a heck of a job by the rush defense.
Because a week ago against NC State had 2 guys that had 10-yard
10
rushes,
yards. Yeah.
and that was their long. Southern Cal had one 15-yard rush, and nobody else. I don't think anyone else had a double-digit yardage game, rush game for the
I
Trojans.
still don't understand how King Miller had 70 yards rushing. It just doesn't make sense. How did he get 70 yards rushing?
He had a lot of carries, right? 18 carries.
Well, he had 18, but
yeah.
I mean, he got stuffed half of them.
Yeah, he did. He got stuffed half. And to JB's point, like Boise State only had they had 2 10-yard gains. One was Madsen scrambling all over the place. They had a 20-yard run, but it was the end of the half when Notre Dame gave up the 20-yard run to end the half. And that's not a 20-yard run either. It's just a cosmetic thing that happens.
Yeah.
Now, of course, if it's a 40-yard run and if they don't make the tackle, then they kick a field goal. So it still counts a little bit, but their rush D has played well. So now here comes Navy.
Yeah, and that's what you
Guys
worry
laying
about.
on the ground don't make tackles, Tim Priester.
I mean, Ash has done he's done a really, really good job in the last month plus, and Navy has a way of, really. Yeah, look, he can rely on.
There'll be some 20-yard runs by Navy.
Yeah, he can rely on Freeman, and all of their skill position guys are the guys from last year.
Yeah,
so, that'll be a tough one.
I like this question from Mac APG. Regardless of the officiating, does Notre Dame have a penalty problem?
A little bit. I mean, they're middle of the pack.
I got an interesting stat for their 6.1 penalties per game, Tim Priester.
All right, what's that?
It is 8.3 to 4.5 home versus road. 8.3 penalties per game at home, 4.5 on the road.
That's interesting. Those ACC refs are cheating again.
Well,
Go ahead, JB.
It was ACC refs for the opener at Miami, and that was an insane environment. And Notre Dame didn't incur its first penalty in that game till deep into the third quarter, if I'm not mistaken. So we know Marcus Freeman does a really good job of locking this team and program in, especially on the road. They've talked about they embrace that, they lean into that. There's a little bit of a penalty problem this year. They're a bit sloppier than normal this year, I would contend. And
They start out really well. Like they were in the top 10 in the country, I think 3 games into it.
Yeah.
With fewest yards.
But we've seen now, the record, we've seen the Marcus Freeman era record for most penalties in a game and most penalty yardage in a game. So there's plenty to clean up, even in a year where officiating throughout the sport of college football is under its harshest microscope.
I decided to take a look, guys. Here's the penalty breakdown. You ready? 9 false starts or delay of game. I think the delay was Minchie at Arkansas, though, so maybe that's 8 because I'm sure that was getting the play in. One of those false starts is Greathouse. 5 holding calls. One's on Pauling, one's on Ty Washington, another one's on Ty Washington. And one's on Price. So actually, hasn't been a lot of holding calls. Knapp got one. 1 offensive pass interference. I don't think you count that as a real thing by Raridan. 4 groundings by CJ Christ.
It is 4, yeah. Yeah, it's 4.
All right. 9 dumb penalties. Christian Gray's face mask in the end zone against A&M helped cost them the game. Roughness on Faremo, roughness on Flanagan. That was a weak one at the end of the game. Roughness on Tay Johnson. Targeting crap call, that doesn't count. Adon Schuler. Roughing on Junior Tui Halamaka, which was when he touched his helmet. However, there would have been another penalty on that play anyway. Roughing on Onye, which is the worst call in sports history. Unsportsmanlike on Traore, unsportsmanlike on Young, and a personal foul blindside block on Fields. I'm not sure that's a mental penalty, really. He just messed up. You have 2 penalties on interceptions. Notre Dame will take that. I think it's fine. You block on the interception return.
After pick.
Yeah. You have 2 offsides, so that the whole conversation of August there hasn't come to fruition really about the faking the false start thing. Yeah. 10 pass interference or holding calls, 6 on Gray.
And I mean, those aren't always bad.
No, two were
Sometimes those
smart.
are wise
Two were
penalties.
smart.
Yeah, one was a deep ball. Who was that against?
Miami to
Yeah.
save the game until they lost it. It turns out he probably should let him score because then they could have the ball back longer. But you don't know those things. And so the probably 9 dumb penalties in there. That's not bad. I guess the false starts aren't great, right? 9 false starts in 7 games.
Yeah, they're like 67th or so. I mean, they truly are in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, yeah.
I think every team has holding problems during various games throughout a season.
Sure. Final question from Osterpol, aka There Is No Markinson. Because Notre Dame has been successful in evaluating and attracting transfers from schools they play against, are there any opposing players from the first 7 games or next 5 games we should keep an eye on, Tim Priester and John Bryce, as possible additions to next year's roster? I threw that as part of it, but Tim Priester, your David Bailey thing, nicely.
God, I don't think I'm Tim. I'm sorry, I don't think I'm ready for a name. Who do you got in mind? By the way, Osterpol is Lepresto spelled backwards. I don't know.
I was saying, what? You sound like Harry Carey right now, Tim.
I know.
Dan Bellandrello is.
But when I saw it, I'm like, I wonder what that is backwards. Anyway, you start the conversation on this.
I don't. Maybe at Pitt, like Pitt usually has a decent collection of defensive linemen. Maybe you see somebody there that you like in a couple of weeks when you play in Acrisure Stadium or whatever the hell it's called.
By the way, have you heard about the turf there?
Oh yeah. How have you not? Yeah.
That's not a great situation going in there.
No, we'll see what they can get done between
help the kicking.
But yeah, it's a mess. Like when you got the NFLPA investigating it for potential hazardous conditions, then that's bad.
That's just what Notre Dame needs.
Like NC State, there's a lot of chatter about how long Dave Doran continues to coach. So any place where you see a coaching turnover is a place where I think you start to maybe evaluate that roster a bit more. Or like I said, Pitt has some nice defensive linemen. Do you look there? I think Notre Dame's probably scouting the Big Ten and some other places now where there's already coaching changes happening. So to me, it's a little bit more about where the coaching changes already.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there.
You can get a jump start.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Last year during film reviews, the X things to say, I identified Max Clare, Thieneman, Fields, and Tim Priester's David Bailey as the main mark. There is no Markinson. Hey, how you doing on the walk off the field? Let's see what's up. You guys want to talk later? Type things. Fields worked out well. Now that Tay Johnson has arrived, the Thieneman thing feels a lot better. Thought they didn't go that way. And as Pete Sampson said, Max Clare would have been enough. Oh, Thieneman wasn't free either. But as Max Clare would have been a nice little addition to the entire tight end situation.
Have a great bye weekend, gentlemen. I've got a 1 o'clock, so
got to bounce.
Appreciate
all right, JB. All right, man.
Now we can talk about him again. Here we go. It's perfect.
Yeah, I apologize. I wasn't prepared for that question, but yeah, I think you look.
Well, I think it's whatever players you've really been impressed with that are underclassmen on bad teams is one way of looking at it too. So like Miami and A&M aren't easy, but Purdue and like ACC teams like NC State gets poached. Purdue can be poached. Arkansas guys are already paid a lot. That was an SEC joke, but it's still true. It still holds true. But
yeah. I'm thinking of NC State.
Like you can look at the Peyton Wilson. Peyton Wilson, that wasn't going to work out. But there's guys like Malachi Fields. I think was one of the ones where you're like, do you want to stay and play with?
Yeah,
Landry,
definitely.
Or you want to come watch?
Yeah,
it's an interesting question because obviously Notre Dame, as soon as they finish a game, is scouting. They must have Mike Martin on. Okay, who really impressed you in that game? Because you can't be asking the coaches too much. They're going on the next opponent.
Well, that's why you have such a massive support staff now, and that's absolutely Mike Martin's job. So, how awesome would that job be?
That would be a fun one, but you got to do a good job, or it would be a very short-lived job too.
Well, yeah, he's got to handle. He's got to deal with the dollars and cents of it too. I'm just talking about like scouting guys on other teams. I think it'd be a whole lot of fun doing that.
whole lot of more fun now too than it used to be because you can
Yeah,
actually do it now.
Stanford. Let's. The problem was, I mean, Stanford was always like, yeah, let's get somebody from Stanford. It's a good fit.
Hmm.
The problem is that
Not as
they're
good
just
anymore.
having, yeah, I mean, they're just having a hard time collecting. Quite, yeah, I mean, they're
Well,
great students.
Eurosec was one of our targets on the Irish
Yeah,
Illustrated Insider.
yeah,
Remember that was
yeah. I mean, they do a great job of gathering student athletes, but they used to, yeah, during their heyday here, not that long ago. I guess it's beginning to be quite a bit long ago
starting to
now.
feel
But
like it.
man, you looked at that roster, it's like Jesus, he'd look good. You could pick out 4 or 5 guys that look
Oh
good
yeah.
in a Notre Dame uniform from those old Stanford teams.
We're a full high school generation removed from Stanford having the talent they had, the
Yeah,
gritty talent they had of playing Notre Dame. So you could probably go pre-COVID. I don't remember what they did during COVID, but I don't bet that Pac-12 barely played, I guess, during COVID. But I would say back to 19 is about your it's about your range. 18 when you're wondering about those guys. That's it, though, for Irish Illustrated Insider. We will have more of your portal questions. No, just kidding. We'll have some Boston College stuff, but most important, we'll have Marcus Freeman, Priester, on Monday at noon before we meet again for a Irish Illustrated Instant Analysis and Insider podcast. Until then, for JB, who had to bounce, and Tim Priester. Tim, you have something to say?
I was just going to say I won't overwhelm with Boston College information on Monday, but I will have a definitive.
Get it out on Thursday.
I will have a definitive. This guy's good. This guy stinks. Report on
Boston College
Monday.
information is good, just a lot of it on Thursday too, right? This guy's good, this guy stinks report. That's nice. There is no in between. There is no markets in either. For Tim Priester and John Bryce, I'm Tim O'Malley. Thanks for joining and watching Irish Illustrated Insider.